On a quiet stretch of ocean, a young Coast Guard officer stopped a rusted fishing boat. Inside sat an old man with a battered Navy cap and a sealed box marked Top Secret. The officer laughed until he opened it. What he found inside didn't just change the mission. It changed everything. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The morning waters off the Florida Keys shimmered calm and unsuspecting as the Coast Guard cutter Valor throttled toward a lone fishing boat drifting near the exclusion zone. What seemed like a rust-bitten relic with peeling Navy paint, a quiet outboard motor, and an old man in a worn U.S. Navy cap gripping a rod like it was the only thing left tethering him to the present. But behind those steely eyes and sun-seared wrinkles was more than a fisherman. Franklin Red Callahan had once commanded submersibles beneath the Arctic shelf, tracked Soviet shadows through the Sea of Okhotsk, and held his breath longer than any man dared in the classified halls of Project Grey Depth. But none of that mattered now. Not to the four young officers speeding toward him, shouting over the bullhorn, "Cut your engine, prepare to be boarded," their voices crisp with protocol, chests puffed by a false sense of certainty, while the lead petty officer, Lieutenant Jared Sims, fresh out of Annapolis with textbook confidence and a clipboard full of assumptions, glared from the bow and barked, "Search everything," as if the old man before them hadn't earned the very stripe stitched on Sims's collar. And Red said nothing at first, just set his rod down, wiped his calloused hands on his faded green cargo pants, and reached beneath the deck with mechanical precision, pulling out a small leather binder that hadn't seen daylight since Reagan left office. Sims snatched it without a thank you, flipping through yellowed orders, hand-signed directives, and mission seals so blacked out even his clearance wouldn't touch them. But when he scoffed and muttered, "Forgery's getting pretty sophisticated," Red finally met his eyes and said, "That binder saw more oceans than you've seen girlfriends, son." And the crew chuckled until Sims snapped, "Search his vessel, bow to stern." And Red didn't flinch, didn't move, just stared as they pried open floor panels, rifled through his tackle box, tore open the bench storage where he kept his prosthetic tools, and even yanked up the live bait tank where two blue runners swirled, until one crewman, Rodriguez, lifted a rusted ammo box stamped "Do Not Open," and Sims snatched it with theatrical flair, clicking the latches and revealing, not contraband, not weapons, not drugs, but medals, citations, a folded flag, and a laminated letter bearing the seal of the Joint Chiefs with a single handwritten line. "If found, extend all courtesies." He earned that, see? Rodriguez paled. Chief Nolan stepped back and only Sims stood frozen, lips parting but no words coming, because on top of the documents lay a black and white photo of Red in uniform, standing between Admiral Carter and General Keating, with a nuclear sub behind them whose keel had supposedly never existed. And Red said softly, "I buried 5 men off Cuba for that box. You want to throw it overboard too?" And Nolan cleared his throat, saluted, and barked, "Stand down now." But Sims, red-faced, shot back, "He's hiding something. This doesn't make sense. Why would a decorated ghost be floating here fishing?" And Red turned, walked to the edge of the boat, tapped the sonar unit bolted to the stern, and said, "Because there's something down there. Something I swore I'd return to." And when the crew looked, they saw the depth meter spike, sonar flicker, and a strange signature ping echo back, sharp, jeweled metallic like a shape that didn't belong. And Rodriguez leaned in, whispering, "That's no rock," and Sims, panicked now, demanded, "What is it?" But Red just said, 1986 we lost a sub chasing a phantom signal through this channel, classified as a training accident. But I was on board. And it wasn't training, and it wasn't an accident. And Nolan whispered, "You're saying it's still down there?" But Red shook his head. "I'm saying it came back." And just then the sonar blinked twice, then flatlined, and the water beneath them rippled unnaturally. Not like wind, not like tide, but like something rising. And Rodriguez shouted, "Reading movement, depth 320 to 190 in seconds." And Nolan reached for the radio, but Red snatched it, saying, "That signal will spook it. We do this quiet." And even Sims now stood silent. The color drained from his knuckles as Red reached into a side locker, pulled out a sealed capsule, unscrewed it, and revealed a hand-carved chess piece, an ivory rook etched with the initials JG. And Red whispered, "You boys ever hear of the Langford Protocol?" But none answered, because that protocol had been struck from Navy records in '91, after a failed sonar weapon test sank 2 destroyers in perfect weather and silenced 27 men forever. And Red continued, "Langford's signal was never supposed to repeat, but it did last week. Only I knew how to hear it." And he pulled a small analog device from beneath his bench, switched it on, and a low-frequency pulse filled the air like a heart-skipping beats. And suddenly Rodriguez screamed, "It's right beneath us!" And the boat lurched, not from wind, not from waves, but like something exhaled below, passive, intelligent, watching, and the Coast Guard cutter blared an alert siren. Weapons crew scrambling to position. But Red threw both arms up, shouting, "Stand down, do not fire," as the sonar screamed again. And from the depths, a black shape slowly broke the surface, slick barnacled. Civ, a forgotten sub's dorsal fin with faded markings. USS Cerberus. Presumed lost 39 years ago, and Nolan gasped, "This can't be," while Sims dropped his clipboard, lips trembling as Red whispered, "She found her way back." And just as suddenly the vessel submerged again, vanished with a silence that sucked the air from their lungs. And Red turned to Sims and said, "You didn't stop me." She called me. And before anyone could answer, the radio on the cutter crackled alive with a scrambled voice. "Red, we're still down here. Coordinates match." And everyone froze because the voice belonged to Lieutenant James Galveston, declared KIA 1986, whose name was etched into the wall at Pearl, and Sims finally muttered, "How? How is this happening?" And Red looked up at the sky, voice heavy with loss. "Because some promises don't end with death, son. Some stay trapped in steel coffins beneath 800 feet. And with that, he lifted anchor, fired his old motor, and the boat slowly turned toward the open sea, while the cutter's crew stood in stunned silence, the once cocky officers now saluting a ghost who never really died, a man whose missions never ended. And as Red disappeared beyond the horizon, the Admiral's orders replayed in Nolan's head. If found, extend all courtesies. He earned that sea. But what none of them knew was that Red had received a new signal, coordinates not listed on any map, and that the Cerberus wasn't the only ghost beneath the sea. And as the sun dipped low and the waters calmed, the sonar flickered once more, this time spelling out a call sign no one had heard in 4 decades, Reaper 1 online. And far below, something ancient stirred.